opinion. Perhaps the light began to be revealed to him. And he wrote a poem which, in a way, could apply to some situations in the world today. And some lines from that I'll quote to you. And the lines are, "The best lack all conviction, and the worst are filled with passionate intensity." The best lacking all conviction, and the worst filled with a passionate intensity. And that, of course, applied to the situation pre-1939, and I suppose to a certain extent even today. We could see a parallel. Anyway, he died in southern France, in what afterwards became Vichy France, during the war. And of course his body could not be taken back until 1945. And in 1945 we sent over a corvette, his body was exhumed and brought back here, and is buried beneath the lady who looks at you rather wistfully from the £1 note, Queen Maeve, who lies buried in a high stony mountain tomb on a mountain called 𝑨𝒍𝒂𝒏'𝒔, above the graveyard where he sleeps. Now written on the side of his tomb is the following inscription: "Cast a cold eye on life, on death, horseman, pass by." Now, Joyce, I told you, visited this place, and we talked a little about Ulysses. Some of you are interested in that. You know that that book was published for the first time by Shakespeare and Company in Paris by an American lady, of all people, an American. Not that there's anything unusual in that, but you would think it would be published in London. It wasn't. It was published in Paris by an American lady, Sylvia Beach, a very courageous and a very good woman. Now, she befriended Joyce, and the book was published. It received some marvellous critiques in the press at the time. It was also looked upon as a work of filth. And I remember as a boy of 16 buying Ulysses in Dublin, not because it was so bright, but I'd heard so much about it I wanted to read it. And it was handed to me in a brown paper wrapper with a nervous look to right and left. "Here, take that and get out quick." Almost as if I was getting a girly magazine, you know? Well, that's a great work of art. Now, of course, they can't sell enough of them. But that wasn't so long ago now. That was in the early 1950. Yeah, that'd be it. So, it wasn't so long ago at all now that was going on. It was raging 2 years at this time, you see. So the Nazis had occupied Paris. The first thing Dr. Goebbels did was to send members of the SD, security service, to the bookshop to pick up the copies of the galley proofs of Ulysses. Now why he wanted them I don't know, but Goebbels was a man who was educated at 7 universities, a PhD, and a very, very dangerous man. They used to call him the poison dwarf. Goebbels. A very vicious man, too clever by far. Anyway, he sent these people to pick up the proofs, and Sylvia Beach wouldn't get them. Do you know what she did? She gave the galley proofs in a fireproof tin box to a Jewish lady who fortunately survived the Holocaust. No one denounced her, and she continued to live in an apartment, in one of those apartment buildings, the old style that you find in Paris, the old style buildings, lived in one of those throughout the war, and passed herself off as an ordinary person. You see, nobody knew that in fact she was a Jewish lady, and she kept guard over those proofs. Now Sylvia Beach was picked up, even though she was an American, and America was neutral at the time, was picked up and spent a year in a concentration camp. It's way up there on our western coast. You see it on the map. A little corridor about 22 miles enables you to enter it. Northern Ireland, of course, is right beside it. Donegal. Now we're not going up that far, so this is the last major town before you reach any of those places. Up there, very, very small places, very similar to Kerry in its composition, in its layout of towns and villages. Now they call this place the City of the Tribes, which is really a misnomer because it should be called the City of the Clans. And the lady who looks at you from the £1 note, Queen Maeve, her son was on a visit when he became King of Connaught, this province here, in the old days, as it was called, Connaught. He was on a tour with his retinue through the area, and he paused on the banks of the River Corrib, the rather short river that joins the Galway Bay with Loch Cornup, or the Lake of Cornup. And he camped there overnight. The following morning, his young daughter went out for a swim, got into difficulties and drowned. And he was overcome with grief. He decided to build a permanent camp here. In other words, to make this his headquarters. And that's how the town of Galway evolved. After the Normans arrived in 1169, Galway was one of the final places, one of the last places, in fact, to feel their influence. And they walled the city, and they refused the Irish the right to speak the language here, or to walk the streets, or to marry, or to wear the clothes, play the music, etc. And the biggest crime of all, of course, was to marry into a Norman family. Now they had laws called the Statutes of Kilkenny, which under pain of death forbade all of these things. Now we arrive in the town square. We're going to drive around the square, one complete circle round it. This is the old railway hotel, the Great Southern Hotel, and you'll notice that the stars and stripes are flying here quite a lot. There's a particular reason for this, which I'll tell you about in a moment. Now we come up this square, we turn the corner. The name of the square is called 𝒍𝒂𝒏', E-Y-R-E, and that should ring a bell immediately with Jane Eyre. Did you know that the father of the girls, the Bronte sisters, was in fact a Galwegian? That he was a Church of England parson, and his name was the Reverend Patrick Bronte. He actually hailed from this place, and I often wonder, as little girls at his knee, did he ever mention Eyre Square, and is that where they got the title from? To entitle the book, to give her, the lady of the title, Jane Eyre. I think it's only a coincidence myself. But the father was in fact an Irishman, the Bronte fathers, the father of the Bronte girls, the Reverend Patrick Bronte, a Church of England parson. They're at home, by the way, if you're ever in Yorkshire, Haworth, the parsonage is still very much alive and kicking, and now a museum. Now, Eyre Square, look down into the square. That now is a public park today, but in the old days, it was a meeting place. Now, where the boys and girls are taking the sun, look in front of them there, just in front of the green, you'll see a speaker's desk that looks like a monument. You see it? But in fact, it's a stone speaker's desk. If you look at that closely, you'll see there's an inscription upon it, and that's one of the speeches which John F. Kennedy made. His effigy, in fact, is the plaque, which you'll see at the bottom of that, John F. Kennedy's side face. Now, Kennedy was here on a state visit just before his assassination in Dallas, and this was one of his last places he visited before he took the helicopter to Shannon at Air Force One back to the US. And he came here with Jackie Kennedy, and he stood here surrounded by his Secret Service people, a battery of microphones, and he began to talk to the Galwegians as I talk to you, in other words, at Libby. And he put away his prepared speech. There was a lot of banter, and you must remember that the people here in Galway and the people in Ireland looked upon Kennedy not as an Irish American, which he was first and foremost an American. He wasn't Irish. He was of Irish background, extraction, but he was an American. You know? But they saw him as an Irishman, a local boy who made good. They didn't make the difference between the great-grandfather and himself, as if he had just left and had become a president. And of course, there was euphoria everywhere, and even the feeling that we should become the 53rd state of the US. Well, that was even the feeling at the time. So the whole place was festooned with these American flags, and the place was packed with the local people, and he talked to them and bantered with them and joked with them, and eventually he said, look, I have to go now, I'm sorry, but you know, my aides and everyone are pulling me by the sleeve to go. You know, that man, during his whole week here, had nothing but tea and coffee and a sandwich every day. He had to talk to people so much, pulled, hauled everywhere, you know. And his family home, by the way, is not in Galway, it's in Wexford, where the Ryans originated from, a little white farmhouse with a corrugated tin roof. Not a thatched roof, corrugated tin roof. You will see the rough sails of what, in fact, was a famous boat that used to ply up and down Galway Bay, a sailing boat called a Galway hooker, not to be confused with the other kind, but you see this here, a Galway hooker. That's the sails up there now on the right, and that's a monument, a fountain I should say. Now the doorway is interesting because this is the last of the doorways of the Norman houses that remained here. You can see the instruction about the doorway, the coat of arms, the helmet, the plume, the whole lot. That's called the Brown doorway, you see it up there? The Brown doorway up there. That's all that's left of the Norman houses that were built here way back in 1200. The cannon dates from a later period. They guarded the port against attack, and the little figure of the gentleman seated there is the figure of Patrick O'Connor, or Patrick O'Connor, and his job was to go around long before tape recordings were invented, before the tape, and to record all the stories the old people had about life and days gone by. Here. Now, when we mention Lynch law, you may think immediately of rough justice, where the writ of the law, as we understand it today, did not run in some of the outlying territories, and therefore the local populace took the law into their own hands to administer justice. But this was a different type of Lynch law. This Lynch, by the way, was the Lord Chief Justice of Ireland, a very important position. And he resided in a house which still stands. It's now a bank, which was ticketed once as the house from the Middle Ages, Franciscan Father. Now, when we go down here, you'll see it down the Sarah Whiting Street. This is where the Lord Chief Justice lived. Now, the Spaniards were here at the same time. These were the legitimate importers of wines and spirits from Spain. So their boys and girls went to school here in Galway. And the son of the Lord Chief Justice, this happened way back in 1430, he had a girlfriend, and he introduced the girlfriend to the Spaniard, his friend. And as Al Jolson sang many years ago, the Spaniard who blighted my life, because the Spaniard took advantage of the friendship, seduced the girl, and young Lynch was very annoyed at this. That's the Lynch mansion now, where they lived, Lynch's castle, you see it? And he ran the Spaniard through with a rapier, you know, defending the girl's honour. And he was brought before his father, who was the Lord Chief Justice, sentenced to death. Now, he was such a popular, good-looking young man that the whole population of Galway, even as far back as that, 1430, signed a petition asking that the boy be freed. The executioner would not carry out the execution, so what the father did was to bring the son out to a place I'll show you in a moment, set up a gibbet, and hang him. Hanged his own son. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Law must be seen to be done, and must be impartial. The father was a strict disciplinarian, so he actually hanged his own son, and we call that Lynch law here in this country to this day. Now, this little street that runs down here to the left, Cross Street, is where Nora Barnacle, James Joyce's wife, lived with her aunt and uncle, and from whom she ran away from after that thrashing she got was staying out late at night. Now we come round here to St. Nicholas's Church. This is a collegiate church because there was a chapter here attached to the old church. It's Protestant. That's where Christopher Columbus attended Mass. When he left on the epic voyage to go to the New World, from up here with his galleon, he dropped anchor at Galway and attended Mass in that church and left with a Galwegian, taking on victuals and water for the long voyage across the Atlantic. His name, by the way, is inscribed in the book inside. Now there, you see that building there on the right? You see the cross, skull and crossbones? That's where young Lynch, he had to step out that window, and the gibbet was put through the window and hanged from that window. That's where the little skull and crossbones is there on the wall. Now we come up from that and into the old part of the town, round by the new cathedral. Now this being Sunday, I'm afraid we may not be able to visit the cathedral because Holy Mass will be celebrated now, and in this country, because we have so many Catholics, it will be on a conveyor belt system from 6 o'clock till 1:30 every half hour. So, I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say that, but you can actually reach in now and take a bottle out the window, yeah? Or help yourself to a shoe, ladies. Look, there's a sale on. Handmade special, yeah? Seamus for trials where we couldn't walk. No, I can tell you that. It was not for nothing that I sang his praises the first day, you know? Now, we come down here, and we come down to the River Corrib, the short river that joins Galway Bay with Lough Corrib, the big lake. This too is a great salmon area. Often they call this the Salmon Weir Bridge. University College, Galway. This is a Catholic university. There are only two faculties here at this college, arts and law. although I believe there's an engineering faculty that has been opened recently as well. I'm not quite sure about that. 𝑨𝒍𝒂𝒏'𝒔, University College, Galway. And this is part, there are 4 colleges, one in Dublin, Cork, and another one in Maynooth for the clergy. These make up the Catholic University. Passed by it here on the right. Now, Irish hospital sweepstakes, you often heard of these. What happens to the money that you don't win? Somebody has to win it, but if you didn't win it, what happens to the rest? Well, they go and they build these hospitals with that money, and they send doctors and nurses on postgraduate courses, mainly abroad, and they buy scanners and other expensive equipment, so that if you buy a ticket and you don't win, at least rest assured that the money is not going to keep some gentleman in luxury. It's going, in fact, to save another human being. That was the idea behind the hospital sweepstakes. Now, some information about the hospital sweepstakes. They are coming to an end fairly soon because the Post Office has received instructions from the Minister for Finance to set up a state lottery. So you can buy a ticket as you buy anywhere in Europe or back home, and the lottery will be, we say, £500,000 every week, and everyone buys a ticket for £1, and that will replace the Irish hospital sweepstakes. So how long they will last, I'm not quite sure, but there's a big question mark over the future of the Irish hospital sweepstakes. Now, we come up here, high up there on the hill, is a Christian Brothers school. It's called 𝒍𝒂𝒏'𝒔, St. Mary's College, up there on the right. Educates boys. We haven't seen any of the girls' schools, but they are equal in number, equally big, and many of them. Now down from that, we come to the little area known as Salt Hill. Now, in the old days, long before we had refrigeration, if you owned a mine of salt, you often hear this expression, you were sent to Siberia or sent to dig in the salt mines. Not just, it wasn't just diet, you'd often wonder what is the point of working in salt mines. You could buy salt, a packet of salt, or a bag of salt, or a couple of kilos of salt for pennies nowadays. But in the old days, salt was worth its weight in gold. And out here we had a hill of salt, hence the name. If you go to Mozart's hometown, the famous composer, Salzburg, the hill of salt, Salzgitter. All the prince-bishops, by the way, of Salzburg made their money from salt mines. That's what gave them the money to build the Baroque churches and the beautiful palaces in and around that area of Salzburg. Now, we had a hill of salt here in the old days. That was all used up, money collected, and it's nothing all disappeared now. But the name remains in this area. Yeah, Salzburg. The Berg, Salt. All these are the hills of salt and the castle of salt and so on, all to do with the salt mines they have there. The prince-bishops of Salzburg own the mines, and that's how they made the money. Now, we'll come up a little further from that, and you'll see all these little guest houses along here, you see? Hostelry, lodge, and so on. During this period that we're living in now at the moment, this time of the year, the first 2 weeks of August, or the last 2 weeks of August, you'll find many Welsh people here, mainly miners. Or you'll find people from the Midlands of England, car workers. And they like to come here because there are many small little establishments here where they stay and have been staying year in and year out. Stay with their families, children. And then at night time they go down to the singing pubs, the nightclubs, the bingo, and so on.
Seamus?
Pardon me?
There seems to be a banging on the outside down here on the right-hand side.
Like something open and it's banging closed and banging and banging.
Something's banging on the right-hand side, outside, yeah?
Yeah, outside the back.
So we're stopping around the corner now in a moment, so we'll check that. So we can see the sort of place it is now. Now we will turn around here and we'll step out of the coach at a vantage point and view Galway Bay.
That's pretty.
The county of Clare, the Brown country and Moher goes through the other side. On this little vantage point I'd like to stop at further down, if we can. We can take a photograph before we leave Galway and enter the city again. Now when you come out, be very careful because we are on a very busy roadway, as you can see. Very busy roadway. So make sure to look to the left and right before you cross over. We normally go in here now on the right. We pull in here now and step across, take some photographs.
That's where the action is.
It's a pizza. Bun ready. Use a hammer to break the bun.
Look at the clouds.
This is really a beautiful day. This is the kind of day the vacationers love. No, just beautiful.
Video, audio. Not sure it's certain terminals do not put in the fire. Put a battery pack in the fire. You would? Castle Sliver Center.
Carmelita's going to get a picture taken. Overlooking Galway Bay.
When they first came on to it, I needed to go and walk with my daughter and myself. And all the kids have had it all here. What's pretty commercial? Very, very pretty. Like, they never wear out. No, I've had this one for 20 years. And it's still perfect. Yeah, it's not
fire station. But what may be of interest to you is what's written above the fire station, written above the entrance. Here you will see Gaelic lettering as it should be written. Now the inscription reads Stáisiún Tinne na Gaillimh, Galway's fire station. Nothing remarkable about that, but look how they write the T. The first word here is S-T-A-I-S-U-N. T-O-I-T-E-A-I-N N-A-G-A-I-L-L-I-N-E. See the way they make the T and the A? And that's how, when the Book of Kells came to be written, how the monks, illustrating these annals and so on, could make beautiful letterings and illuminate the manuscripts with these letters. Now, we come down here. This was the old harbour of Galway, where the Spaniards used to import wines and spirits, and where the big trade used to be carried out with sailing ships. That port now has been silted up. There's someone fishing for salmon. You see them down there? One fisherman, a lone figure. Now have a look at the archway here. That's called the Spanish Arch. In the old days there used to be gardens behind that, and that's where the Spaniards used to walk with the wives and children, promenading. But look at the house beside it, the one with the red door, the white front. That's where a second cousin of Sir Winston Churchill, a lady called Mrs. Bryce, lived for 35 years. She was a sculptress and a painter. And during the war years, Churchill was very afraid that she would be taken prisoner, that a U-boat would surface in Galway, and she would be carted off to Germany and held hostage. But in fact, that didn't take place. She refused to go to England, and only in the last 2 or 3 years did she eventually leave, because of arthritis, and go to Blenheim Palace, Churchill's birthplace, where she now lives. Now the harbour of Galway, this is the modern one, These are the fishing boats, and one of these, by the way, one much bigger than these, foundered off the coast of Cork yesterday, a Spanish one. Went down, fishing fleet, and there are other vessels now which come in and out here, bringing in the clay for the factory to make the china, bringing in petroleum spirit for the motor cars, and bringing in coal also. The harbour at Galway. Now every day a ship leaves from the other wharf just over there, called 𝑨𝒍𝒂𝒏'𝒔, St. Enna, and that goes out for 35 miles along Galway Bay to the Aran Islands, bringing the foodstuffs out there. The people around here, by the way, all speak Gaelic, and they speak Gaelic in the Aran Islands, or on the Aran Islands I should say, and they look upon everyone here on the mainland as the Sassenach, the Englander, the foreigner, that we're all contaminated. They are the only true Irish people. 2,500 of them live out on the islands. Very tall people. You see the deposits of coal, everything has to be brought in from abroad. That's the reason why people would prefer to use peat. Now, if we had more time, and we could drive up into Connemara, where the famous film, The Quiet Man, was made, up there in Connemara, many years ago now, you would see more deposits of peat and more people burning it. It's only here, near the port, and in some of the bigger towns, that coal is burned. For instance, now I burn it myself in the winter. Now listen to this for economics. Starting off, I have a boiler in the kitchen behind an ordinary fireplace, and that produces hot water for bathing or household activities like brushing clothes or clothes, utensils, that sort of thing, and it heats the radiators as well. Now, a half ton of coal costs £65, and that will last you approximately 4 weeks, starting the fire at 8 o'clock in the morning and the last ember going out at 12 at night. You have to clean it out every morning, lay it down, start it up. So if you wonder what I do during the winter, you can think of Tony going round. You wouldn't recognise me with a little woolly hat carrying coal buckets in and out all day. So whenever you are in the winter, think of that. You know? Offer a silent prayer for those who stand and serve, you know. But it's quite an expensive business, this coal business. It's become a big topic at home, the coal, you know, is the coal men coming? How much is the coal and so on, but anyway, each to his own little fad. But I thought it was economic, it's not. £62 for 4 weeks, every 4 weeks. So we can work that out now, from September to May. Have to burn it right through. The peat, by the way, you see, if you live in the country, you just cut the peat, bring it in yourself, and then you have enough to last you a complete year. You can burn it every day. You saw, by the way, yesterday in the cottages at 𝒍�𝒏'𝒔, you saw the peat burning. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And you see how it burns now. It's quite warm, yeah? It's a count by the Pope in Rome. John Count McCormick, born in Athlone, 14th of June, 1884, and died in September, I think it was, 1945. This church is the church to which he sang as a chorister, and then he went to the Scala Milan, where his voice was trained, and then he became a popular singer of concerts, or at least at concerts, of popular melodies from opera and so on. Now, the citadel guards this part of the River Shannon. This was one of the places where William III contested the crown of England against James II, and the bridge at that time was blown sky high. And that stalled William III's forces until the Earl of Lucan could regroup at Limerick. Now we carry on from that into the town itself, and in a moment I'll show you the actual house where McCormick was born. Now they say in Ireland the prophet is never known at home, and that applies very much here, because we have a tendency in Ireland to knock anyone who gets on pretty well. Now McCormick's birthplace in any other country would become a national museum. Here it has been turned into a restaurant. We'll see it now in a moment. When we come up to the street, there's a little turning where the motorcycle turned to the left, called the Bon, down there, meaning the white way, the Bon. See it there on the left. Now, when we come to the end of this block, for souvenirs up here, look down here sharp to your left, and you'll see the restaurant. You see it there? Count McCormick's restaurant. That's the house in which he was born. Nothing sacred. Yeah? So we move on from that. We leave this garrison town. There's nothing much in the town. It's really a garrison town. We leave Athlone, and the next place will be Moat, and then we carry on to 𝒂𝒏𝒔, and from there on towards Maynooth and into Dublin then. Now, if you do want to take 40 winks, we can turn the music down fairly low, just to have it as the background music, or if you want to read or talk among yourselves, or if you just like to listen to the music, you can. But from now on, it's not very much because we're on the central plain now, and if anything of interest comes up, I'll sing out. Otherwise, we'll have a quiet period now for the next hour. If you want to get 40 winks, or read a book, or chat among yourselves, please feel free to do so. By the way, this is a nice ad. Notre Dame, and I have it, ring votre dame. You see it up here? Is that well done? Ring your wife, yeah? You notice Continentals always say, when they talk to you, they say, ring your woman. So you ring votre dame. It should mean ring a wife, but you say ring a woman. But that's ring Notre Dame, ring votre dame. Now, we leave all that and carry on out towards Moat, 𝒂𝒏𝒔, and from there onwards into Maynooth, and then on into Dublin.